Hey everybody, my name is Casey Grayson, and I actually am making this video because I want to tell you guys what it was like to go through BMT, through basic military training for the United States Air Force at the start of a pandemic. It was crazy. So March 10th, that's when I got on the plane, and that is when I flew to San Antonio. And I was fully expecting to have a normal experience, just like my other friends who had gone and done it before me. In fact, a really good friend of mine, he actually had been back maybe a couple weeks, and he was telling me what to expect, and he was like, "You're gonna be fine." And here's the thing: pandemic or no pandemic, you will be fine. You can make it through, especially if you have a good attitude and prepare yourself mentally and physically. And even if you don't have time to prepare, if you really give it as much as you can, you're gonna get a lot out of it. So March 10th, literally that was right when in New York City. So I'm originally from Maryland, but I have lived in the New York City area for a couple of years at that point. And, literally 5 days later, things kind of got a little crazy. So what I want to do is tell you about how boot camp was for me, and note that my experience is going to be different than the experiences of a lot of other people who went to boot camp before COVID-19 became such a big thing. So at that time, I just thought it was going to be a normal experience, just a normal everyday, well, maybe not normal everyday thing, but a normal everyday military experience. So what happens is, you get there to San Antonio, and there is this waiting area where you wait. It's called the USO. They actually are staffed by veterans, and they're a great charitable organization. So, you wait there, you kind of like eat some snacks, you put your bag down, and you kind of just wait. And then, based on when you get there, you might be waiting there maybe an hour or two, or you might be waiting 6, 7, 8 hours. I waited I'd say about 3 hours, and then your MTI comes. So MTI is military training instructor. There are a lot of acronyms I'm gonna throw at you, but I'll always make sure to explain what they mean. And BMT, for like Army people use the term boot camp. So for the Air Force, instead of drill instructors, we have MTIs. Instead of boot camp, it's BMT. So an MTI comes and they read off a list, and you kind of get into different lines, and you get on different buses. And so when you're on the bus, that's when it kind of starts to kick in. Some people are excited, some people are kind of feeling a little emotional, some people are crying. You have the whole range of emotions. So our bus driver, he was actually a veteran himself, and he actually gave us a really good speech. And it really depends on what bus driver you have, but from what I've heard, you usually will get some type of pep talk, some type of speech, and the bus looks just pretty much just like a school bus. It's painted gray. So, you're riding on there, you might be feeling a little nervous. I know that I was. And our bus driver was awesome. You know what he said? He said, "You guys are my heroes." He said, "You guys are my heroes because just like I did, just like many other people do, you are putting your life on hold. You're making sacrifices to join the U.S. military." And it was a really nice talk. I really appreciated it. The interesting thing is he said we couldn't film him. We could not film him or put him on social media. So I don't know if other bus drivers are like that, but he was very cognizant of that. He was very aware of that. So the trip, it was a little bit of traffic. It was like 30, 35 minutes, and you drive through the gate to Lackland. And they call it the gateway to the Air Force, and it literally is that. And you come up to the gate, and you see the guards. They've got their AK-40, they got their big machine guns and everything. And you go on through, and you get dropped at this huge, massive building. It's called the Finkston Reception Center. It starts with a P at the beginning, but it's silent, so don't do like I did and say Finkston, because someone will probably yell at you. So you get off the bus. We didn't get yelled to get off the bus. We just filed in an orderly fashion. And you go and you wait in this huge center, and it's a lot of waiting around when you first get there. It's a lot of waiting around. So at this point, this was still a normal or normalish experience. This is when most people previous to COVID-19 would experience. So you wait, you basically wait in this huge auditorium, and they give you this box. They call it the frozen nasties. Basically, it's like the sandwich is half frozen, the juice inside is half frozen. It's got some pretzels, some Oreos, and you're advised to eat it because you really won't be getting another meal until the morning. So I ate it. I actually had to take the sandwich and kind of sandwich it in between my armpit just to like warm it up and stuff. And the juice, I actually sat on it because, they were frozen. But I ate it. I'm glad I ate it. And that's when stuff starts to begin. You basically just wait there, and they, you just wait for your name to get called. And finally, my name got called. It was about 11 p.m. And you have to run through this room, and you get all of this stuff. You get a backpack, you get flip-flops, you get deodorant, you get soap, you get all of this stuff. You have to run through and grab it, and there are other airmen there, and they're yelling at you to hurry up. And then finally you go outside, because you've also got your civilian luggage. You go outside, and that's when you meet your MTI. Now, obviously, the MTI is not going to be with you 24/7, so you actually have a team of MTIs that you work with. But I remember him. He was bodybuilder. He was shorter in stature, but he had the hat and everything, and he was loud. And instantly, I was like, "Oh, this is where it begins." And so by then, it was like 1 a.m. So you had to run. You had to run all the way across this giant concrete field, basically, to go to your dormitory, which is where you're going to be housed for the rest of your time there. And we were just running and running, and we had to go all the way up the stairs. We were on the 4th floor, and basically you get told where your bunk is, and you have to repeat what your bunk number is, and you get this little locker. And there were about 50 of us, and there was like a row of lockers down the bay. And so you had the A side and the A bay and B bay. And pretty much that was it. You went to sleep. Most scratchiest blankets you've ever slept on. They're like these wool government blankets. And that first night, I remember I got maybe like 2 hours of sleep. Before you go to bed, you also have to strip, go shower, change into some, whatever civilian pajamas you have, because you haven't been issued anything. You haven't been issued anything except, the basic toiletries and stuff that you're gonna need. And I remember when I woke up, and it was, you think your wake-up call is gonna be at 5:45? No, that first morning they woke us up at like 4:30, and they come in, they turn on the lights, they're yelling, they're screaming. Usually there are 2 MTIs, and it was something. So we all had to line up, and we had to like shave and do everything else. So those first couple of days, those are more like processing. You get your first haircut, you get issued your PT gear, your physical training gear, you get issued your uniforms, you get your shots. So things, it's kind of like the prelude, because you really don't start doing that much. And also with your boots, so even with your boots, you actually are wearing tennis shoes for like that first week. So when you first get there, that's called week 0. And then the first week, a lot of people call it sneaker weeker, because you have to break in those boots. And so you'll start wearing the boots maybe like 2-3 hours a day. Then you'll start wearing it 5-6 hours a day. And I'll tell you, you will get blisters, but your feet kind of toughen up. And, you do get used to it. So all of this was pretty normal for the most part. You get your phone call that first night to let them know that you've arrived safely. You use your cell phone, and then you basically throw your cell phone into like this plastic bag, and it gets locked up. So whenever you do phone calls home, you pull out your cell phones. You don't use pay phones or anything like that anymore. You pull out your cell phone, charge it for a little bit, and then you make your call. So because of COVID-19, we started to notice things were a little different, I'd say about like the second weekend, like at the beginning of the second week. Um, all of a sudden, we got to take out our green shirts, the shirts we got issued, and we are instructed that we're going to make masks out of them, as many masks as possible. So we're cutting our shirts up and making masks. And that's when we started to realize, oh, wow. By the way, at this point, we haven't been allowed to receive any letters. We haven't made any additional calls home, but we're hearing rumors of stuff that's starting to occur. So our MTIs, like, really, really good, in my opinion. Obviously, though, they were trying to keep us calm. They were trying to say, hey, listen, it's probably not going to be a big deal. Then in the dining facility, in the DFAC, they call it, basically, like, they had a salad bar. I thought the food was pretty decent, to be honest with you. So they had a salad bar, they had like cereal, they had all of this other stuff, and also on each table they had accoutrements. They had, like sriracha, they had salt, pepper, all that good stuff. So they took that all away. They took that all the way. And then they started issuing us with well, they would give us, plastic disposable utensils. Then the trays got switched to foam. And then all of a sudden it wasn't 4 at a table. It was only 2 at a table. And so they would stagger the meal times. And so meal times got stretched out. And sometimes you would eat really early or you would eat super late and still getting yelled at naturally. But then all the MTIs started to wear masks. Then we had to wear masks. It was crazy. And then in class, so us as a flight, we had a sister flight, and we would have classes together. They would sit on one side of the room, we would sit on the other. All of a sudden, we weren't having class with sister flight because, there are a bunch of classes. You do drills, you do PT, you also do a lot of classes because there's a test you have to take in order to pass as well. So you have to pass your physical test, and you also have to pass like academic tests. So all of a sudden we were in the classroom just on our own, like without sister flight, and we had to leave one seat in between every other person. So you can imagine by now it's like towards the end of March, and on the outside, apparently our families, they were like tweeting at the Air Force. They were doing all types of phone calls. So we were allowed to actually call home sooner than we were supposed to, and they actually ended up letting us call home every single week. That's how bad it was getting. And I was super worried about all my loved ones back home. So it was really good to be able to talk to them. And the postal system was getting messed up. So a lot of the letters were not arriving until like 2, 3, 4 weeks after they were supposed to come. And actually, when I finished BMT, when I graduated, and then I went to Fort Sam Houston on the other side of San Antonio for medic training, because I'm an aerospace medical technician. I got letters weeks into my training. I got letters for a month. I got letters that got forwarded to me that were supposed to get to me all the way back at BMT. So that was crazy. So in order to keep updated, the phone calls were really what allowed me to stay plugged in. So I was really worried about my loved ones, especially the older members of my family. I was worried about my friends. It was tough. It was that part was tough because the science was still coming out and we didn't fully understand what was happening. And you got to understand, when you're at BMT, you don't have access to any news, no internet, no email. They had these little sheets of news that they would post, just like with what the weather forecast was and certain political things that were going on. But that's it. You didn't really get more than that. So there were a lot of rumors going around. And then we started to see that there was this big field. It's a huge base. Lackland is a huge base, by the way. And there was this right out by our PT pad. That's where, you run, you're doing physical exercise 6 days a week. So I got really fit, which is fantastic. But there's this huge field that they have. It was like concrete, and they started setting up tents. And they started calling it Tent City. So then basically everybody who started to arrive 2 weeks after I got there, everyone who started arriving, they had to quarantine for 2 weeks in Tent City, which I'm glad I didn't have to do that. I really feel for the people who had to do that, but it was a precaution, So all of a sudden, it was, things just kept changing. It's like every couple of days we were getting new news about what COVID-19 was or wasn't. We were hearing rumors, and they would change things up. We had to sanitize everything. I remember the beginning of April. They usually don't give you bleach, but they were giving us like diluted bleach, and we were just rubbing everything down. And mind you, you clean your dormitory twice a day, every day. Sometimes just once on Sundays, but usually it's twice a day, every day. Like you're on your hands and knees dusting and you're wiping everything down. So they gave us bleach and they had us sanitize everything. They had us sanitize everything. And then with our boots, they had us sanitize our boots. We didn't use bleach on our boots, but we used a different cleaner. It was crazy. And then they were talking about graduation was at risk, but that's when the bombshell came that we weren't going to be able to see our loved ones, our family and friends who were coming to see us graduate. And that was a big blow to all of us because, for the guys and girls that were married, that they weren't going to see their spouses, weren't going to see their kids. I had a lot of people that were coming to see me, and I was holding that as kind of like a motivating factor, but that it just wasn't meant to be. And also I had to tell myself, listen, it's about the safety of my loved ones. And I'm in the military now, so the mission has to go forward. So when we found that out, that was beginning of April. So that was about 3.5 weeks before graduation. So we heard all types of stuff that we wouldn't be doing Beast Week. So Beast Week, that's when you actually are in a mock deployment and you go out to this other base that's kind of like a satellite base that they have, and you live in these tents, and that's when you do CADM. That's when you like learn to shoot and you like get certified on that, and it's really awesome. Actually, I had a great time. You have to do claw, which is this giant obstacle course, but we got to do the full thing. Other people didn't. Other groups had a shortened version of it, but we were one of the last groups that actually got to do the full thing of it. So it just was really interesting because things were just evolving constantly, and it was kind of a different experience. I'm still glad that I did it. It's just crazy, the timing of it. So I finished April 30th, and I tell you, it was bittersweet. It was great, because you get your airman's coin and you're a full-fledged airman now. Because until then, you're a trainee. And that's the thing. When you're there, they're going to call you trainee until you get your stripes, until you get your airman's coin. And it was just so interesting because, do I have any regrets? I have no regrets whatsoever. But it was so crazy how there were a lot of things about it that were very different. So the way I look at it is that I had a unique experience. And if anything, I think it has made me and the other people I went through this with, it's made us stronger in a way and more resilient, because it was like every day they were changing something. Every day they were telling us to do this, and then all of a sudden they were like, no, don't do that, do this instead. It was very interesting. It was, and when we graduated, we all had our masks on. It got broadcast on the internet, but you could barely tell who everybody was because, obviously we were all in a full uniform. We ran our OCPs. We ran, our camouflage. We weren't in our dress blues. And it was a very short, simple ceremony, but the way I see it, I still got my airman's coin. I still got to graduate, and I knew that I'd be able to celebrate with my loved ones later on when it was safer. So anyway, I hope this helped you guys see. I'm going to be making more videos about this, but I hope this helped you guys kind of get a feel for what boot camp was like, what BMT was like right at the beginning of COVID-19, for those first 2 months there. It was intense, but it shows you that even during a pandemic, you can get through whatever challenges you're facing if you really concentrate and give it your best. So I'm going to be making a lot more military-related videos. So please, if you haven't already, share this with someone who you think will find it interesting. Give it a like. It really helps me out. And definitely subscribe. I will be releasing a lot more content. So thank you. And hey, have an awesome day, awesome week, awesome year. Take care.